Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's webinar, Job Hunting Tips for Content Marketers During COVID-19 with Content UK and Stopgap. Just going to hold here while people start joining, and we'll start properly in a couple of minutes. And could somebody just confirm in the chat box that you can hear everything we're saying clearly? I'm glad to hear it. Cool. We'll kick off properly in a couple of moments. Where's everyone tuning in from in the UK, by the way? London, yay, glad there's, oh, Paris, we have someone from Paris. Montreal, Canada, wow, Warrington, Brighton, Northampton, Boston, Florida, wow. Lots of people from all around the globe, it seems.
Wow. I spotted a Lebanon in there as well. Amazing.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting such a diverse group. An ex-Stopgap person there.
Oh.
Lebanon, Nigeria.
Amazing.
I'll just give it one more minute and we'll start. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming along this evening to today's webinar. I'm Christina, and I'm a full-time content manager for a fintech called Soldo, and I also run Content UK, which is a community to support UK content marketers. I thought it'd be a good idea to put together this webinar because obviously we're going through a very surreal and difficult time across the country, and I know a lot of content marketers have been struggling to keep their jobs. A lot of people have been made redundant. There's a lot of job uncertainty. I know a lot of self-employed people have been losing work and struggling to find new contracts. So I thought it'd be great to get Stopgap on board, who are marketing recruitment specialists and who actually helped me get my current job as content manager. So I really trust their expertise and hope that they can give some advice for anyone who's finding themselves job hunting at the moment. Some of the things that they'll be covering in the next 45 minutes will include which sectors are still hiring right now, how to nail the art of a video interview, how you can set yourself up to prepare for a job hunt, and places that you can look for content roles. So hopefully you'll find some useful advice throughout the next 45 minutes. If you have any questions, if you just pop them in the chat box on the right-hand side, and then at the end, we'll have a Q&A section to answer all of those. And just before I hand over to Stopgap, just a little bit about Content UK and the resources available to you through that. So Content UK, it's a website, it's a community to support UK content marketers. And on there's a jobs board where I update every week different content roles, and I'm trying to find as many as possible in the current climate fuel. We have a Slack community where you can connect with other content marketers. We run virtual meetup chats on Zoom, and at the moment we're doing a webinar series with different content experts offering their expertise. So if you head over to Content UK, sign up to the newsletter, and every week that's where you'll get the best of content resources once a week delivered to your inbox. Enough from me. I'm now going to pass over to Tom, who is the marketing manager at Stopgap. Over to you, Tom.
Thanks, Christina. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm Tom Johnson, the marketing manager at Stopgap. We're a specialist marketing agency and creative recruitment company. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we're seeing currently in the jobs market, particularly around content. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that times aren't difficult at the moment. COVID-19's had a massive impact on the job market, particularly within marketing. We have seen obviously a huge drop in live roles. Probably around at 70% of our live roles have dropped off in the last month or 6 weeks. And I suppose some of the industries that have been hardest hit are agencies, as well as obviously hospitality, as you can imagine, travel, transport. So, there's clearly, it's a very difficult time, but there are some positive things that we're seeing as well. I think something to bear in mind is that a lot of the stuff we're seeing at the moment from clients, so that they're putting things on hold. They're not pulling everything completely. It's just a time of uncertainty, and they're looking to try and just bed down for a month or 2 months before picking things up again. And I think there's some positive stuff to think about as marketers and as content people. Digital and social communication is really quite integral to lots of businesses and them surviving this current period. We're actually starting to see clients recruiting again, which is really positive. This week we've had new briefs in. We've also actually placed candidates in roles this week as well, which is really positive. So I think companies are starting to adapt and realise they have to do something to get through this period and actually put recruitment back on their agenda. And also there are some industries that are still fairly active. So as you can imagine, things like online retail, e-commerce is still quite busy. Charity is still doing very well. And also healthcare, obviously, and medical, again, as you can imagine. And also actually there's some longer term things that are quite positive. So looking at some research from the hospitality industry, there are actually respondents that said 76% of businesses in hospitality are looking to recruit again within the next 12 months. So that's not necessarily within marketing, but it just shows there is, I think, some confidence that after this is over, people are going to have to get back to normality. And also there's actually a report, the Bellwether report, which is from the IPA, and they're predicting a sharp increase in marketing budget again in the next 12 months. And then finally, I think from a sort of quite specific content point of view, and my colleagues Victoria and Nikki are going to go into some more in-depth tips in terms of what to do from a sort of recruitment point of view. But I think a few things to think about as a content marketer and how you can maybe set yourself up to look for new roles is maybe think about looking outside of your traditional sectors. If you worked in hospitality quite often or travel, maybe look at some other areas where there might be more opportunities. Obviously sharpen your skills, but also broaden your skills. So if you've got a little bit of social stuff or some SEO, think about try and develop that more, upskilling and just broadening your skill base. And also it's difficult out there obviously at the moment, but think about maybe just pitching to companies. If you see a company you've got an idea for, you like, and they're not actively recruiting, drop them a line, pitch them a creative idea, or send across your portfolio. And then finally, think about working on your personal brand. So quite a few of us have got some downtime at the moment. So, it's a good time to work on your blog if you've got one, get your portfolio up to scratch, make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date, all that sort of thing. It can be difficult to motivate, obviously, at times, but, trying to do what you can just to get some of that stuff done and ready, which Nikki's going to talk a bit more about, is a good idea. So I will now hand over to Nikki, who is going to talk about some tips to prepare yourself for getting a job.
Hi everybody, I'm Nikki Pearson and I'm one of the consultants at Stopgap. There are actually 22 of us and we all look after different areas, mainly different sectors. My role responsible for both client side and agency roles, and I basically help people who are in the creative sector. So a lot of writers, some of whom are content writers and editors, and designers as well. However, we all face the same challenges. So in terms of meeting candidates and talking to people about their job search and preparing best for it, any one of us are facing the same challenges and basically try to address and help candidates as best as possible. So I've got some slides on basically using this time and preparation for your next steps, whether it's currently marketing yourself to do some free work, whether it's doing some voluntary work, or whether it's just preparing for answering some of the job ads, which actually are still live. So I'll go into the slides now, and if you've got any questions at all, please just field some of your questions in the chat box and we'll come back to them at the end. I'll just start my slides. So this is us, Stopgap, and these next few slides, I think there's 7 of them around how to set yourself up to find a new role and just some tips. Some of these just common sense really, but hopefully there'll be just 1 or 2 tips or gems that you can take out of this that might help you that you hadn't already thought about. So in terms of your support for the job search, which, you know, sometimes I talk to candidates and they're really keen that a recruiter can be their sole provider of information around roles. But I would say in the last 5 years of my recruitment life, it's been challenging with the increase of the number of in-house recruiters and the number of talent managers who are within a business and there to try and actually save costs. So practically, you need to think about your job search in 3 sections, one of which would be 30% of your efforts, probably with a few recruiters, most of whom have got some specialist roles around content or search engine marketing or content marketing. And you, of course, can see some of those advertised on their websites. So register with those guys, and even if you're registered with 4 or 6 people, consider them to be 30% of your job search in total. The remaining 30%, I would say, respond to direct advertising. And if you do so, you see a role that you think looks relevant, then tailor your CV and send your folio link with the application so that the person receiving your application has got the most relevant CV that shows and evidences relevant work or experience. And if you have a folio that demonstrates work, then send that with it as well. Don't wait for somebody to contact you to ask for your CV. To ask for your folio. And then the remaining percentage, 40%, I would say, is the slightly longer, slow boil effect. You're not going to necessarily get a job immediately, but it's around networking. And if you have a brand or a business or a content marketing agency in mind whose work you admire or whose brand you feel could be a good fit for your experience, or where you have a personal interest, this is where you could spend some time proactively doing some research and actually thinking about your relevant experience and then tailoring an approach, whether it's through LinkedIn or through email, to initiate contact, to start an engagement, and actually basically request some time, 10 to 15 minutes over Zoom or via a chat of some description, where you can actually ask some questions and determine whether that business and brand is actually what you're looking for. So it's you leading that process, you proactively reaching out to somebody who could help inform your decisions. So moving on, how can you best support yourself? Well, I'm sure we've all had ups and downs in these past few weeks. I certainly have. And some days are better than others, but I'm very lucky that I've got a network of colleagues who I'm still working with and colleagues who are currently furloughed, and we talk regularly. So when it comes to the first point around collaboration, I would say draw on support, friends, family, your work community, your colleagues, your ex-colleagues, and if necessary, I found the mind supporting app Calm to be really useful. And obviously take some daily exercise, because that can just help bring a positive spin to an otherwise slightly depressing day. I'd say celebrate every success. So if you are reaching out to any clients or anybody proactively and you get somebody who says, yes, I'm happy to have a chat with you, please just basically reward yourself and acknowledge that you are acknowledge that you've done something great and that you've achieved something, because we need to pat ourselves on the back. When you're feeling positive enough, this is an opportunity to challenge yourself. So this is where I would say ask for a peer review of your current CV and your portfolio. Basically try, so I'm just checking, can everybody hear me? I hope that that's okay. So we're going back to challenge yourself, and this is about the personal brand and what Tom touched on, which is if you have a blog or a portfolio or a CV, do spend some time auditing what other people are doing. Make sure you're happy that it's relevant for the target audience and for the brands and the businesses that you are interested in working for. And you could even ask for some of your peers for their objective opinion on that as well. And then don't take shortcuts. As mind-numbingly boring as applying for jobs can be, please, if you're going to bother applying for a role and you think it looks relevant for you, tailor your CV and your folio, essentially craft your application, because basically it means that your application will be taken more seriously because you will look more relevant for the role. One size CV doesn't fit all. Christina has got some upskilling content sort of on her website, which is contentuk.co/content-upskilling. The link is above. It's worth looking at because this is a time when, if you are motivated to do so, this might be a good time to look at some of those tips as to areas in your current skill set that you want to expand upon. So here are some sites. I'm sorry, this is a bit UK centric, apart from LinkedIn, I think. And I think even probably the roles that Christina features on contentuk.co jobs are probably predominantly UK based. So for anybody else, I do apologise if you're coming from Nigeria or Lebanon and listening today, but here are some UK sites where it might be worth signing up and subscribing to job alerts. I hope that those are useful if you're not already using them. Now, setting yourself up for a return to job seeking and work, this would apply to any time of the year, of course, regardless of COVID-19. I think really what I've learned 15 years in recruitment outside of my career in agency is that preparation is really key in this job search. If you're working with a recruiter or you're applying for a role direct, try and find out what you can before you apply, because then you can tailor your CV to pull out resonant points and to make sure that when somebody skim reads your CV, they can see the kind of content that they need. One of the things I would typically recommend as well when you're thinking about applying for a job is, have you done it versus could you do it? And the important thing I think that most HR or line managers or talent managers are looking for, and actually recruiters as well, is have you kind of done 70% of what this job description is asking for? And if you have, and if it's around the 70% mark, you know, I think that's a good indicator to go ahead and apply for it. Do keep a list and date of the applications that you make, because many recruiters work on the same roles, and it's also good for you to be able to follow up if you are applying direct. So take a note of the brand and the date that you made the application. And the other thing I wanted to say is, if you've got some time, please Google and have a look at STAR. It helps when it comes to interviewing. Some of us are better than others. It's just a way of being able to construct a story around a project. So you start with situation, task, the action and the results, and it helps you put together a short pre-seed version of an evidence-based about a project that's relevant. So STAR is, if you aren't already familiar with it, please Google it, and that can be good to just start to go through in your mind some of the projects, some of the hero projects, some of the problems and challenges that you faced, and think about how to communicate that at interview. Preparing to meet a potential new employer. When you actually get invited to interview, it's likely to be use a remote or video at this point, and Victoria will come on to talk about that. But in terms of meeting them, whether it's virtually or whether it's in person, whenever the restrictions are lifted, I would recommend looking at the careers pages of the website and Googling the business that you're going to meet. Look at the dress code of the employees and try and go for 1 or 2 notch up for the interview. It's about being appropriate, really. I know that we're all individuals, but this is a time where you kind of want to feel comfortable and feel that you are dressed appropriately, whether that's through a camera or in person. It's worth researching the interviewer that you're meeting. Look at LinkedIn, look for any shared contacts or whether you went to the same university, and don't regurgitate it, but just have that so that there's something that you can talk about that helps you come across as being insightful, interested, and relaxed in your interview technique. Now, for freelance specifically, it's unlikely that you're going to meet people in person. You may not interview for a role. So this is really where the CV and the relevance is kind of really important. So I'm sorry to go on about it, but I'd really like to encourage you all to just really think about the mindset of the employer, many of whom are line managers and who are time poor. So please, every time you are sending your details across for a role, think, if I was recruiting me, does this CV tell me what I need to know? Highlight relevant points, maybe embolden certain phrases, help them to see the relevant transferable skills. And here's just an overview from Stopgap's perspective of some of the people that we work with, some of whom I've featured here are tech or FS based, some are creative agencies, but there are many, many more. And as I said, across the business, there are 20 more consultants other than Victoria and I, all of whom work with clients in education, in charity, in professional services, and in brands, retail and consumer. So I hope that's been helpful. I'll hand over now to Victoria, who's going to talk to you about some tips around video interviewing and about CV tips. Thanks, Vix.
Thanks, Nikki. Hello, everybody. Really exciting to be speaking with so many people from around the world. So for the last few weeks, I've been working with candidates of ours at Stopgap. Whilst the job market is a little bit quiet, more than a little bit quiet, on working on your CV, tweaking your CV. And obviously, during this lockdown, nobody can interview in person, so everything's being done over video as well. So people are having to adapt their style and approach. It is a little bit different interviewing across video than it is in person. And so there are a few tips that I've put together that I hope will help. I've put some embarrassing pictures of myself in there as well to help bring the point home. And actually, even though this is for video interview advice, I think it will also be helpful for anyone who's starting a new job during lockdown. A lot of our clients that we are working with and hiring are obviously onboarding somebody remotely. So you might be meeting new colleagues or joining in team meetings for the very first time through a video. So I think hopefully a lot of these tips will help with that as well. So yeah, let's start with the slides that I've put together for video interviewing and CV advice, if they will come up. Here we go. There we go. So, as this picture shows, I am not wearing something that I would describe as neutral. I think the first thing to remember is when you're not meeting someone in person, you're not there with all your mannerisms and tone of voice and everything that you can bring into the room that the client would normally focus on. So it's important to have quite a neutral background. It doesn't have to be beige or bland. It can show a little bit of personality, but for example, the photo that you've got there, it's just too busy. That's actually my father's study, and you can tell it's not been cleaned out in quite a while. As well as the background, do have a little think about your attire as well. I know that we're all individuals and we want to sort of bring across our own style, but just think about whether it's distracting from what you're actually saying. Then I would recommend as well, it sounds obvious, but try not to cut your head off. Make sure that you are fully in shot, you know, as those pictures show. You know, if you're speaking to someone, you can't see their eyes, for example, that's, you know, that's a bit of a letdown. So definitely try and make sure that you've got your camera positioned in the right place. And with that, try actually propping up your laptop on a few books. I've actually got mine propped up on a few books at the moment, just because it helps. It's a little bit more flattering. It will help make sure that you're right in the center of the view of the camera. So this is really important. Make sure that you're lit from in front. So don't stand in front of a window, for example. Those two pictures, exactly the same lighting. I was just standing in front of the window in one shot and then turned around for the other way. So you can show that it shows that if you've got light from in front of you, you're much better lit. I mean, the last thing you want to be doing in a video interview is be talking in the dark. Your interviewer won't be able to see your face, and it will just really impact negatively. So do try and make sure the lighting is right, you know, and move around different rooms in your household just to try and figure out which one is the best one. Again, sounds really obvious, but don't be too far away from the camera, or as that lovely picture on there shows, too close either, because it's just a bit unnatural, a bit unnerving potentially for an interviewer. And if you're too far away, it loses the connection as well between the interviewer and the interviewee. So another thing that's I found this really difficult actually, test where you should be looking. So I've taken a few screenshots of myself where I thought I was looking sort of at the camera and therefore my eyes would be connecting with the person on the other end, but actually it turned out I was looking in completely opposite direction. So try doing a few different tests of screenshots of yourself, and then maybe mark with a post-it note where you should be looking on your laptop screen. I think it's you know, when you're having an interview over video, you're not able to establish that immediate rapport that you might be able to if you were in person. So if you're continuously looking down or, you know, away from where the employer, you know, would be in person, that might impact a little bit negatively. So just try and test that out if you can beforehand. And as is obvious, really test out your mic and your camera before. Do a practice run, film yourself in advance, and then watch it back so you can make the adjustments. I noticed when I filmed myself as a practice run for this that I just moved so much. My head was all over the place. I have a tendency for my hands to be making lots of gestures, because that's what I would do in real life. It's what I would do in a face-to-face interview. But we've got to try and adapt and try and remember that actually that doesn't come across too well over camera. We need to really try and be as stiller as we possibly can. I know that's a bit tricky, but it will make a big difference when you're interviewing with someone. Or as I said, even if you're meeting new colleagues for the first time over a Zoom video interview during lockdown. Okay, so coming on to CV advice. Now at Stopgap, I work with candidates all the way from grads who are just starting out, all the way to really, really senior experienced people. And although CVs are very individual, there is a set sort of expectation and industry preferences as well that line managers and people reading your CV expect to see. And that does apply across the board. And just because you're sort of more senior and have loads more experience doesn't necessarily mean your CV needs to be longer or more complicated. So I always start by telling my candidates that you've got to make your CV as simple and as clear as possible, as Nikki was saying before. You know, it's not always that a line manager that's going to be reading your CV or looking at your CV. It could be an HR manager, it could be a talent or a recruitment manager. And frankly, they might actually know nothing about content. They might know nothing about marketing. So we really need to break it down for them and make it easy for them. All they may have is a job description next to them and they're tick boxing. They need to find the words that are on their job description. They want to find them on your CV. So if we can just make it really easy for them to understand, the better your chances are. So I find it really a really good idea to split your job roles into responsibilities and achievements. And this is what I mean. So this is an example of someone's CV. So as you can see, they've split their one role into the responsibilities and their achievements. And what this does, it allows a person reading your CV to see what you're just on a day-to-day basis doing, and then where you've added value. And that's what's going to set you apart from other people. And if it's all sort of clumped together, it's actually really difficult for people to see that, and they're just not going to bother reading loads and loads of prose. I think actually that's probably the most amount of bullet points, maybe a few more, that I would have per role as well. Try not to get into that habit of just putting absolutely everything you've ever done, because, you know, it's more important to show the achievements you've done. Clients also love numbers, so you can see there's a few percentages in those achievements. You know, numbers of where you've seen success and what you've added value to. This is another way of doing it. Someone has just put, they haven't necessarily written their responsibilities, but they've still split it up into two sections, and setting out what they achieved. It's also quite helpful when you do this, because then when you have an interview, if you get to an interview stage, you can then think you've already thought about, actually, what did I do in that role that set me apart from others? What did I bring to the table there that I can bring to the table in my new role? So that, as I mentioned before, I would definitely make sure that your CV is maximum 3 pages long, and that's for someone who's really senior. I also don't just subscribe necessarily that your CV has to be 1 page long. I know there's a lot of debate over this. Lots of people saying it should just be 1 page. I don't subscribe to that thinking. I think it's fine to have a 2-page interview, just as long as the information you've got on there is relevant. As I said, 3 pages max. That's for someone probably who is a lot more senior. And what you need to remember as well is the more senior you get, the more you should be concentrating on your most recent job roles, really. So the more senior you get, most people then start to chop off or minimize the content that you write about your most sort of your anterior work positions, unless there's something in there that's really relevant to this specific job that you're applying for. It sounds really obvious, but make sure your work history is in chronological order. You'd be surprised how many CVs I see that are sort of all over the place. Really try and make it easy for the employer to understand where you've been working at what time, and your most recent job role needs to be at the top of the page. If you've got any gaps, such as a sabbatical, or, you know, a gap year, you went traveling, or you were renovating a house, do put that in there. You don't need to go into extensive detail, but just write sabbatical or something like that, so that it's accounted for. The other thing that I see a lot, or don't see a lot of on some CVs actually, is a personal profile or a summary. I work usually just with marketing agencies, and I know definitely for sure in that sector, agencies love to see something that gives a bit of personality, a bit of life to a CV. So it doesn't need to be very long, but at the top of this page, for example, this person has called theirs a personal statement. You don't even need to write a heading if you don't want to. You can just write a paragraph, and it only needs to be a paragraph. It sets the scene, who you are, what are you looking for, and you can just bring a little bit of personality to it. This is another example. They've called it a profile. And again, they've just outlined who they are, how many years experience they have, what they believe about their own experience. Because everywhere else it's very factual. This is what I've done, you know, these are my grades. But this is a little bit of where you can put a bit of you and what you think you are capable of, and what you've done and what you can bring to the table. Again, don't make it too long. I'd say that's the longest I would like to see a profile or a summary on someone's CV. Again, this is a little bit, can be a bit debated, and it might seem like a small thing, but again, you really want to make sure that your CV hits that line manager in the face immediately. They are time poor. They don't want to be reading through reams and reams of things. What they really care about is your work history. I know that there are lots of people who have done lots of upskilling and courses and degrees, but generally speaking, in my 9 years of recruitment experience, what clients have asked me for or what they're interested in, is someone's work experience. That's what they want to know about. They're not, in my experience, they're not so concerned with, okay, what degree have they got? Where did they go to university? Or did they? It's more about your career history. So I always prefer to see on a CV your career history above your education information, because that's what is most relevant to a client when they're reading your CV. Now, the other thing that I recommend is setting the scene of your job role. So what I mean by that is, as you'll see on this slide, below, so when you write your job title and the name of the agency or company that you've worked for, most often people don't write or don't explain who that company or agency is. I think that's a mistake. I think you should try wherever possible to explain what the agency or what the company are, who they are, even if it's just one sentence. Because as I said before, you know, someone reading your CV might have never worked in the marketing industry before. They might not understand content. They might, you know, if you've worked overseas and you've worked in a company that only exists in Australia, for example, we won't know what that company is. So always try and set the scene. For example, here this person has worked for an agency called Octagon. Some people might not know, but immediately it's written there, it's a sponsorship, marketing, brand experience agency. Bam. So then everybody knows what this person has been doing and why they joined that business. Why were you approached, or why did you join that business? So again, it just sets the scene. So this person hasn't set the scene in terms of who the agencies are or who the companies they've worked for are, but what they have done is included client names, which is really, really important. So if you've worked in an agency as opposed to in-house at a brand, it's surprising how many people don't write who they've worked for. They might just write an FMCG client, or, you know, it's really important to be as specific as you possibly can. I know in some rare occasions people have to sign NDAs and they can't write who they are, but more often than not you can. So be as specific as you possibly can, even if it's quite an unknown company or brand name. If you then in brackets want to put tech company or, you know, diesel company or whatever, it's really important that clients can try and see a hook where, you know, if you've worked for a drinks company and they're a drinks company, the client wants to easily see that you will be a good fit or a match. Equally, even if you're applying to a company or a brand that you've never worked with before, you again still just want to set the scene of what you've been doing, and it brings a CV to life and is more credible. It's quite a simple, obvious point, but don't write your CV in third person. It's just, I think it's possibly a tad old-fashioned. It's a little bit too corporate. It's a bit impersonal as well. So always try and write your CV in the first person. Now, something that can be people trip up over a little bit is just trying to make their CV a little bit too interesting or exciting, that it just detracts from the actual content of what your CV is trying to say. So just avoid too many graphics or icons. I mean, as you can see on this slide, it's just a bit too much, and I don't even want to read the words or the content because I'm really distracted by these big pictures and all these different colors. And also I don't really see the relevance of this either to this candidate. So it's, you know, it's tempting to try and, you know, jazz up your CV, and by all means, you know, use some nice templates. I know Canva have some great ones, but just don't go overboard. Now, as Nikki said, it's really important to tailor your CV to the job description. Don't take shortcuts. If you're going to apply for a role, especially at the moment where there is so much competition and you're going to, you know, there's going to be so many more people applying for that one role than there ever was beforehand, your CV has got to stand out. So for every job description or every job that you apply to, look at the job description, look at the spec, and take out those key points. If you've already decided, yes, this is a job I can do because I've done it before, maybe highlight or emphasize certain areas within your CV, within the content. Try and tailor it as much as possible to that brand or to that role that you're applying for. Now, I know a few of you have been asking about portfolios. In my experience, when I've hired or been recruiting for a content person within a marketing agency, they've actually they've not asked for a portfolio from anyone. So it's not necessarily a prerequisite, but if you want to put one together, then it definitely is going to make you stand apart. Make sure you put the link to your website, to your portfolio, onto your CV, and hyperlink it as well, so that it's really easy for someone to go to your page, to your online portfolio. And yeah, I hope that that's been helpful. Good luck with all your job hunting and tweaking of your CV. And yeah, hand back over to Christina for some questions, Q&As.
Thank you for all those talks, Victoria, Tom and Nikki. That was all really useful. I think everyone will agree. So we had lots of brilliant questions come through. So we'll start going through some of those now and hopefully answer those. So starting from the top, we had a question from Bryony, who's asked, which companies are likely to recruit an experienced MCIM who has freelanced in other sectors in the last year, but is keen to find a new rewarding role ASAP as a content marketer?
I'm happy to answer that. So it's Nikki here. I think it's very difficult. It's a bit like that question we're often asked, which is, what's the market like? You'll see from the various roles that you see advertised on LinkedIn and coming up that there's no one sector that's really hiring. Tom touched on it earlier, which is the fact that there are certain sectors. So some of our charity
just to add to that
clients
quickly,
are
I
still
think
hiring,
I'm a
but then
generalist
some of them have
marketer,
really
although
suffered because
I
they
enjoy
aren't going to
content
have
creation. I
enough
think the good thing about
funds to be
starting a
able to
blog
carry them
or a
through this
website or something
period.
is that you can dip into other
E-commerce,
elements.
and
So
I
you
think,
can,
Christina, you
you
might
can plug in
agree,
analytics
potentially
and start getting
fintech and
experience
tech
with
are
analytics. You
still
can learn a bit about SEO
moving
and that kind of
ahead
thing. You
and,
can also,
and still
like
have
Nikki
to
said,
continue
experiment more with the presentation side of things,
with some
imagery.
momentum. And then
You can
there's
start
other
promoting it on
sectors
social
like travel
media.
and
So,
tourism,
you know,
to a
whether or not
degree,
you're just a writer
entertainment,
or a
properties,
content
other than,
marketer
of
or a
course,
social specialist or
sorry, I
whatever,
should mention the
you can
likes
really
of
broaden your
Netflix,
sort of
Amazon Prime,
skills by
Amazon
getting one
generally.
key project like
Any
a
of those
blog
sectors
or
are
a
actually
website.
pretty
So,
busy and never seem to suffer through a recession or through something as unprecedented as this. But I'm sorry, I can't give you a specific answer to which sector is likely to hire. I think it does come down to what you've done before and where you can try and make a bit of a match between something you've had experience in or an interest in, and where you can then identify that and put it together with your application. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, it's a very, very detailed response there. Thanks, Nikki. Moving on to the next question here from Sam Wilson. What is your best piece of advice for content marketers / specialists entering the job market for the first time this summer, aka those graduating in summer 2020? And just a bit of advice on that question from myself, actually. So when I first graduated and had no experience, one thing I did was make my own blog. So before waiting for someone to hire me, I created a blog just talking about good places to go in London. So then when I was ready to apply for an interview, I could demonstrate pieces of written content straight away without waiting to be hired. So that's one small thing that you can do straight away.
Yeah, I would entirely back that up, Christina. I think that you probably find that you have to take any job that you get, whether that's fruit picking or working in a supermarket, and everybody understands the need to earn money. But where you can start to do some work, whether it's pitching ideas like Tom said, whether it's volunteering to write some content for a brand or a business that you know needs some help, where you have an interest, or whether it's a personal blog that shows your capability when it comes to writing, and maybe even writing and putting images together to create some compelling content so that it looks attractive and it's easy to read and digest. I think all of those will stand you in really good stead.
well, I mean, no, it's tricky, isn't it? I suppose, you know, making sure that you're really up to scratch, I suppose, in the elements that are required for remote working. So all those tips Vix has talked about in terms of Zoom calls and presenting yourself online and, you know, via this sort of medium. looking at all sorts of different types of software that can help with working remotely, from calendar booking software to video conferencing and that kind of thing. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't think any of us have got the ultimate hack.
I think quite a few companies right now are
that's all
offering
I'd say.
free courses in things like SEO. I think Blue Array and perhaps Moz as well are offering what are usually paid for courses, but free at the moment. So it's worth.
And I just lastly, finally, would like to add as well, don't be surprised if it takes you a little bit longer as well than you might initially think. It's tough out there anyway for grads, because sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming. There's so many different directions that you could go in. But I think obviously, as you can imagine, come September after you graduate, it will be a bit tougher as well. So just be a bit patient. Don't necessarily jump at the very first thing either. Make sure that you're applying for roles that you can really see yourself doing, and in companies you can really see yourself being in, because you don't also want to accept something that's not right for you just because you want to get your job career started immediately. So wait for the right thing.
Jason, just to answer your question, when you said what are the name of those free courses, I'll double check at the end of this and send that in the webinar notes afterwards. Okay, next question is from Liana. What's the best hack to be hired as a remote content marketer ASAP?
Oof. I mean, I'd love to say that there was a magic answer or a magic hack, but if there is one, unfortunately, I don't know of it. I think it's perseverance, keeping your chin up. Luckily, actually, at the moment,
Yeah.
so luckily in one way, we've got a lot of companies that are willing to hire people working on a remote basis, much more than they ever were before. So I think the job market will massively change after lockdown. People will have to be remote hiring, and remote working much more than they ever were before. But I think there's, unless Nikki or Tom, you might have anything to add to that.
No. And all I would say is back to what I banged on about at the beginning, which is with the proactive approach, where you have personal insight, personal contact or interest in a brand, and you can research them on LinkedIn or through Google. Try contacting people direct, but not to say give me a job, to start a conversation, basically, whether that's just you wanting to ask some questions about their business, their culture, the setup, who they recruit, who they use to recruit for them, who the best contact is in the business. But ideally, some sort of either video or call-based engagement that you can then have some questions prepared and start to actually kind of engage. Do also please make sure that your LinkedIn profile, which most people seem to use nowadays, it's very widespread. Make sure that that's up to date with a decent profile picture where you look human and it's head and shoulders and nobody's got their arm around you, or you're looking at camera ideally rather than off to the left in a sort of fairly prosaic way. And also you probably know about this, but you can switch on settings, open to opportunities. So on your LinkedIn profile, and you can actually write in the subtext underneath your name and your title that you are available and open to opportunities and set up to work remotely. And those are all Boolean searchable by people like Victoria and I as recruiters. So it's quite good to make sure that that's really up to date on your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, some really good tips there about making sure you've got all the basics sorted out before you try and do any crazy hacks. Another question here from Claire. What's the best way to find and audit our competitors, as Nikki mentioned?
Well, I see quite a lot of candidates' portfolios and CVs, obviously, but there are private information, and through GDPR, it's difficult. So what I actually ended up doing was just Googling and doing things like top 10 or best copywriters in the UK, or I found quite a few sites where there were tips about writing and composing and making a folio. I noticed there was a question about the best sites to use for a portfolio site. But I think that there's quite a lot I managed to find just in the public domain through Googling. And I would say, if you don't have friends that you can say, can I have a look at how you put your CV together, or I'd like to look at your portfolio and what site are you using? If you're not using direct contacts, I would probably use Google and try and keep them pertinent to your, whether it's US or UK, for instance. There are slightly different styles and aesthetics, and CVs are slightly different in the US and in Europe. And in France, it's really popular to have just a one-page CV, for instance. And we wouldn't particularly encourage that here. We think it's, it's perfectly all right to have 2 or 3 pages. So, yeah, I would recommend Google.
Thank you. Another question here from Liana. There are so many cases when you're qualified for the job, but you aren't hired afterwards.
Yeah, I think.
What's the problem?
Well,
Oh, sorry, no, go on.
That's quite, not necessarily straightforward, but, when I'm assuming you're talking about sending a CV over and you're not hearing back, you definitely need to make sure and ask yourself the question, is my CV conveying all the skills of a content that I have as a content marketer? Does it include those keywords that the client wants to hear? Have you matched your CV with a job description or the job spec? So a lot of times your skills can kind of get lost in what you think, you've really conveyed it in your CV, but actually, you've not necessarily included the keywords that an employer is looking for. So they're going to overlook you, sadly. So you've got to really sort of go back to those basics and make sure that you're applying for the roles that you know that you can do. So you're not going to be disappointed either. Because if you're applying for roles where you sort of have maybe done 20% of the responsibilities that they're looking for, then you're already setting yourself up for a failure. You need to be applying for a job description where you feel that you have already performed, or around 70 to 80%, if not more, of the responsibilities. That way you've got a really, really good chance from the off, and hopefully you'll have less disappointment that way.
Yeah, that's really good advice there. Making sure you're applying to roles where you've got at least 70% of the experience to put yourself in the best possible light. Question here from Karina Scott. Are there any buzzwords that you recommend always adding to a CV?
No, I don't think we would. We're not really a recruiter that would recommend using really dynamic words. I think we probably are the ultimate pragmatists. It's just about a really clear, well-written, really nicely crafted, plain, non-polarized. So the look and the actual aesthetics of your CV, not too small, easy to read, but with words which are just real and true to you rather than buzzwords. The only thing that Vic's touched on, and I think maybe I did as well, is just certainly in the achievements part, the buzzwords are really your achievements. So they don't need to be hyped up. They don't need to be particular words. It's about showing practical, real and relevant evidence, and that's what will get you, as long as it's presented reasonably easy to find. That's what will get you
exactly the only thing. Tom, go ahead. Sorry, no, the only thing I was going to add is Nikki's absolutely right. You don't want anything gimmicky on your CV. You don't need to be writing the word passionate 5 times on your CV. The only things that I would make sure it's really clear. What channels have you worked on? Have you worked on online channels, offline channels? Have you worked B2B? Have you worked B2C? And then the names and the brands of your of the clients that you've worked on. So just make sure everything is really clear. And those really are your buzzwords.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep it really clear. The only thing I'd also add to that is on LinkedIn, is in your bio, perhaps including words that recruiters might be looking for, but keep it quite natural. So it could be SEO strategy, content writing, but sort
Just
of
quickly
writing
add
an
to that as
organic
well. I
word
suppose if you are returning after maybe a few years
hashtags
away from
in
the
a long list.
sector, I'd probably
that
recommend
will
just
help
making
with
sure that you're
Google
aware
search
of
on
any
LinkedIn.
new software, or read up
Question
on
from
the industry press and that kind of thing. Just
any
so you're
advice
aware of
if
any
you're
new
returning
terms or
to
new software
marketing
or anything that
after a
might crop
period
up
working in an
and sort of trip
entirely
you up at
different
interview. It
sector?
doesn't mean you have to have
I have only one
used it or
previous
been working
full-time
with it
content
for the last year or
marketing
two,
slash
but just make sure
copywriting
you're
job,
aware
but
of
that
those
was a
things.
few years ago, plus a few bits of freelance work since.
I'll go first, and then Christina, if you've got any thoughts on this, please either chip in or say what you think. I think that it's all about showing relevant, transferable skills. You can't deny what you've been doing for the last few years, whether that's parenting, caring, or doing something entirely different like running your own restaurant. But you might just want to consider minimizing the amount of focus on running your own business as a restaurateur or a bar owner, and actually just putting the dates, putting the title, founder and owner, but nothing more, so that the focus is on what you did in your content marketing job 4 or 5 years ago, whenever that was, and also on some of the freelance that you've done. So name the client, name what you wrote for them, whether it was a social piece, whether it was a thought leadership piece, whatever it might be. Expand and be honest, but just expand on the relevant points and minimize the stuff that you think is less relevant to the roles that you want to go for.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. Even if the most recent stuff you've done are not connected to content marketing, don't feel they have to be the biggest part. Keep them nice and short, and then really focus on the content pieces and reframe it for the roles. And then also just make sure you're doing some side projects as well to up your experience, whether that is your own blog, posting advice on social media, doing a free guest post to increase your content experience as well.
Yeah. And one of the things I would say about blogs is I've seen quite a few candidates writing blogs, and I think just be a little bit careful, depending on the type of brand or business that you're going to work with and how intrepid they are. Be a little bit careful about the kind of content that you're featuring on there, because some people write very personal blogs. It might be about mental health, for argument's sake, and I think you just want to be careful whether or not you want an employer to know that up front before while they're considering meeting you. Just don't want to give any reason for them not to concentrate on what you do brilliantly, and for them to be able to put your application to one side.
Yeah. Absolutely. Question from Claire. If you are both a content strategist and a writer, would you remove writing experience from a content strategist application and vice versa? Some of the skills are transferable.
I had this a role recently where somebody was exactly that, Claire, and I would say it's just about the framing. So you would put the content strategy piece first, and you would reiterate that title as being the key and first part of your job title all the way through your CV, and you might just choose to refer to the fact that you're writing and editing.
Thanks, everyone.
And some of those
Good luck,
achievements, but the focus just needs to be on the strategy piece. So I wouldn't take it off entirely, because I'm quite sure they'll need you to write and edit. You probably have to write some nice strategies, but I would just make sure that the focus is on the content strategy. And even your job title at the top, if you're going for a content strategy role, I think I'd be tempted to write Claire, surname, content strategist, and then the rest of the content around your jobs can refer to the writing and editing piece as well.
Good tips there. And then Karina, I guess we've covered this already, but with limited experience as a junior content marketer, what kind of sample content should I prioritize producing at the moment?
It's a little bit what Christina and the guys were saying a little bit earlier, Corinna. You know, writing blogs. Christina said when she first moved to London, she was writing about things she was seeing and doing, things to do in London. I don't necessarily think, from my point of view, there's anything you necessarily need to be prioritizing. It's just about being seen to be, you know, being innovative and doing those things that will enhance your job application as well. I don't know if anybody else has got anything else to add on that.
Only that if you had a particular interest in going into a particular sector, whether it was tech or whether it was finance or whether it was entertainment, then you might want to focus on actually writing the majority of content around that subject matter, rather than just personal passions around football or eating and drinking, or, you know, it can be a combination of everything. But I think it's quite good to have a focus, and if you're going to target yourself for an industry sector, it would be good to have the content that's relevant for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That would definitely make you stand out, because a lot of people do tend to focus on personal content automatically. So if you can target it to specific sectors, you'll stand out amongst others. I think it's now reached the hour mark. I know there's quite a few more questions in the chat box. If you email those over to us afterwards, we can take a look and try and get back to you later this week to answer those questions. Thank you very much to the Stopgap team. I'm sure everyone would agree they were really useful, practical tips right now. Hang in there, everybody. I know it's a very difficult time for a lot of people, so don't be too harsh on yourselves if you're struggling to find work. Yeah, so that's it. Thank you,
everybody.
Thank you, Christina. Thanks for hosting.
Take care.
Have a lovely day.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Just to confirm, you'll all get a video replay of this, so you can get all the slides and the video after.
Lucky.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.